Okay, so it's just after midnight on January 30th, and I'm gonna try to do a 24 and 48 challenge. I didn't read a single book in January, and I hyped myself up, convincing myself that 2024 was gonna be the year that I read so much, and then the first month's almost done, and nothing's new, nothing's changed.
Nothing new, nothing changed, same old shit. Same old fuck.
Also, January was a very busy month for me, and in good ways. I had a lot going on work-wise and school-wise. I have 2 part-time jobs. I just started back a part-time job that I usually do this time of year, which is tutoring at my university. And I teach my first class tomorrow morning, which is exciting. And then I have my other more stable part-time job that I've been working for like a year and a half now. And yeah, I just always have a lot of deliverables and things that I need to be doing for that. School-wise, I had a lot going on as well. I'm trying to finish up data collection for my thesis, and this month I even went to Jamaica to present at a conference. And while I was there, I went around and I had a grand time. Jamaica is such an amazing and interesting place. It was my first time in any other Caribbean country outside of Trinidad, so it was my first time traveling to a place that felt so familiar and so close to home, but also very different, but in a good way. And I also had a lot of fun right here home. At the beginning of the month, I met up with Jerry from Onyx Pages, who came to visit, and we went on a hike. And a few days ago, I, for the first time in my life, went to Caroni Swamp here in Trinidad, which I've never done before. So yeah, I don't feel too bad about not reading anything in January, but I do want to rectify that. Here are some of the books I'm currently reading, not all, but these are the ones that I would like to finish within the next 2 days. I have Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, which this is just 100 pages long. It's a novella. I have just like 25 pages left, so I should honestly finish it tonight. I have another book by a Palestinian author. This is called Out of Time by Samira Azam, which has a foreword by Adania Shibli. I should say both of these are translated works by Palestinian authors, which is one of my priorities in terms of reading this year. I also picked up Birdie by Tracy Lindbergh, which I'm not digging. I'm 100 pages in, and I have 150 pages to go. Like a lot of it is just going over my head, and I really need to sit down with it. It's one of those stories that you need to focus on. But it's also one of those things where I feel like it's kind of a now or never situation. Like if I don't finish this soon, I'm probably just not going to finish it at all. Ooh, girl. It's been a week since that first update. So this 48 and 20, 22, 23, 24, 48 shit, it's not happening no more. What I decided instead was I just want to vlog every 5 books that I read this year, and those will be my like wrap-ups, because I'm just not into the monthly wrap-up thing. Like I could never do it, because some months I will read nothing and other months I will read maybe a good few books, so it's just never going to be consistent. The last week was somewhat productive. I got stuff done, but I didn't read nearly as much as I wanted to. And then over the weekend I got sick, most likely because of the Sahara dust. And if you are wondering what dust from the Sahara Desert is doing all the way over in Trinidad, Google it, it's a thing. So yeah, on top of getting sick, I also stubbed my toe to the point where it started to bleed. I got a mosquito bite on my face, that's what this big red bump is. And then last night I hit my elbow on my nightstand and it's still hurting. So I am convinced that somebody gave me some kind of bad eye, evil eye, nazar, or as we say in Trinidad, najar. So, I will be praying to Allah to protect me from whichever one of y'all watching me with a little funny eye. Okay, I rebuke thee.
Oh, she's taking it.
I am sweating like a bitch. This heat? No ma'am. Anyways, I only read 1 book over the last week, and that was Minor Detailed by Adania Shibli. And I really enjoyed this. I'm not going to talk about it as yet. I'll talk about it a little bit later in this vlog. Right now I just don't have the capacity to formulate my thoughts properly as yet. Out of Time by Samira Azam. About 50 pages left, 40 pages left actually. And then I recently started Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is y'all's fave. Everybody on BookTube and their mother has been raving about this book and this series for years. It's like a series of like 10 novellas, and they're kind of like fairy tale retellings. So my goal for today is to just read these 2 books and prep for my second week of classes for the semester tomorrow. So it's almost a week later again.
Oh Lord. Again.
I still want to do these vlogs. I just feel like they're probably going to be a little bit more vloggy and entertaining come the next one. But yeah, I finished 4 books. I don't think I'm gonna do the 5-book thing. I think I'm just going to stop these vlogs when I feel like stopping them. And now feels like a good enough time to stop this one. Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. It's a novella series that's meant to be a play on the down the rabbit hole trope. This book is a story about a home, a boarding school rather, for children who went to those worlds and for some reason got back to our real world and can no longer go back to the world that they went to. The boarding school is meant to be a place to help them rehabilitate and cope and prepare themselves to re-assimilate back into our world. In this first installment, we follow Nancy, who went to some sort of like underworld place called the Hall of Dead or something like that. Very coincidentally, as she arrives at the school, these murders begin happening. And it's up to her and some of the friends that she makes there to try and figure out who is committing the murders. I will say that I kind of figured out who it was halfway through because there were some very obvious signs pointing to who the killer was, and I actually thought that the author was purposefully doing that to try and throw us off because it was very obvious to me. She wasn't trying to throw us off. That was who the murderer was. But other than that, I really loved the whimsical writing style, the quirky characters, and the references to all of these cool and interesting parallel worlds. Makes me really excited to move on with the rest of the series, and I could see why so many people love it. I also read Birdie by Tracy Lindbergh. This is one I really wanted to love, and I sadly did not. The only reason why I didn't DNF this book was because I put it on my 24 books to read in 2024 list, and I really want to read as much books off of that list as possible, so I kind of forced myself to read it out. I will say that I really appreciated the themes explored in this book. This is a story about a woman from Canada, an indigenous woman from the Cree Nation, who has essentially gone silent because of her very traumatic past that she is or has not begun the process of properly healing from. The problem with this book was the writing and the way that the story is told. The narrative just meandered too much. It meandered too much, and my ADHD could not handle it. There is a way to write these kinds of stories where, you know, it's non-linear and it's a bit all over the place, but it's still done in a way that makes sense. The first example I could think of is Serious Blooms at Night by Shani Mutu. I was reading a Goodreads review and the person described it as like if you write the main character's story out on a piece of paper and then you rip that piece of paper up into like tiny shreds and then shake it in a jar.
Like a tornado girl, and the Lord just shook it up.
And then you give it to the reader and you're like, here, put it together. That's what reading this story felt like. So yeah, would I recommend it? Read it when you have the mental capacity to, first of all, be able to handle the very heavy and dark subject matter, but also when you have the mental capacity to just digest something that isn't very straightforward and that is purposefully meant to kind of confuse you and keep you trying to piece things together as you are reading it. The next 2 books I want to talk about are by Palestinian authors, both translated from Arabic. This one is called Out of Time by Samira Azam, which was translated by Rania Abdulrahman with a foreword by Adania Shibli, who wrote the other book that I'll be talking about. This is a collection of short stories, and they have all been published. I could never say the word posthumously. Possum. She died a long time ago, I think she died in 1967. A lot of these stories, save for the last maybe 5 or 6 stories, do not focus at all on the occupation. They either focus on life before the occupation or life after the occupation, but not on the occupation itself. It's not the center of the story. And in the introduction or the foreword by Adania Shibli, she was talking about how this is where a lot of the value in Samira Azam's work lies. She kind of creates an imagining of Palestine before the occupation, and also kind of, you know, entertains the idea of like what would life in a normal Palestine look like. It was a lovely collection. I found some stories really impactful. I found some to be okay. I also didn't like some and found them to be a bit jarring. It's really not about whether you enjoy them a lot, but really what this author's work means in the wider context for Palestine. This last book by Adania Shibli, translated from Arabic by Elizabeth Jacquet. This is a book that caused quite a bit of controversy. I believe the German translation of it was supposed to be winning an award in Germany, and then when the author spoke out about the genocide that started last year, the current siege on Gaza, the award people decided to take it away from her, which is like, fuck them. It's basically a story told in 2 parts. It's only 100 pages long. The first 50 pages is a fictionalized retelling, I believe, of what is a true story about these settlers who go into the Negev desert of Palestine, historic Palestine. They are basically trying to cleanse the land of the Arabs, and they find a Bedouin family and they murder the entire family save for one young teenage girl who they take back to their camp and basically rape and torture her until they eventually decide to kill her as well. And the story ends there. We then jump to, like, I guess early 2000s, maybe 2010s Ramallah, and we're following a woman who becomes very obsessed with this story. And the book just is kind of about her journey through historic Palestine. She leaves the West Bank, then goes to Tel Aviv, and then goes down to the Negev desert looking for answers. Kind of explores the idea of what can you discern about a wider story or a wider thing that happened by looking at the minor details and the little things that happen. In other words, how can you relive and retell a story that you were not a part of, that you weren't there to witness? I almost feel like I had a kind of similar experience to that while I was reading this book, which was really fascinating. The main character, when she leaves Ramallah and then she goes to Tel Aviv and then she goes down to the desert, she uses these maps. One of them is like a current day map of Israel-Palestine. The other one is a map of historic Palestine. And as she's like describing in detail, the author is describing in detail the main character's journey through the different highways and roads that she's taking. And I just pulled up my Google Maps on my laptop, and while I was reading the book, I was just kind of on the journey with her. And like when she went to certain places, I was Googling images of those places. So it almost felt like I became a part of the story. She would talk about how, okay, this area is called this place, but according to the map of historic Palestine, this used to be a series of Palestinian village called this and this and that. And so it's like I'm looking at the map and I'm seeing these places that are just labeled as, you know, modern day Israel, and I'm also learning that actually these little areas that I'm looking at on the map now used to be Palestinian villages. Again, I can't really describe it. It was just such a visceral reading experience, and I highly recommend, if you read this book, to pull out your own map and try to go on the journey with the main character, and I think it will really add another layer to your reading experience. I'm gonna cut this video off here, y'all. I am sweating. It's Sunday. My family's being noisy. It is unnecessarily hot. Sahara dust is in the air. I'm still recovering from this bizarre, like, sickness that I have been struggling with for like a week. We're struggling out here, but we read in. First 4 books of the year. I'm gonna go ahead and start a new vlog after I finish this one and continue my little reading stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this for what it was. I promise the other vlogs will be a lot more entertaining and interesting than this one was. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. If you made it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments. And yeah, until next time, inshallah, keep reading.